Know what to eat, but find yourself not eating it. Perhaps you've been on diets and off again and just wonder why you can't stick to them. The Eating For You podcast, hosted by me, Sally Ann Pisk, will show you what's been missing so you can enjoy a healthier way of eating that lasts. Hi, Sally Ann here, and welcome to 2026. This is our first new episode for the new year. And I know that most food and eating resolutions fail within 14 days, not because you lack motivation, but because they target outcomes, not your drivers or reasons for eating. And I'm talking about this today because we're at the beginning of the year, and I want you to be able to set yourself small, achievable things so you feel healthier, fitter, more vibrant, more energetic, happier by the end of this year. So for many women, New Year's resolutions might sound like this. I'm going to stop snacking. I'm going to be more disciplined with food portions. I'm going to eat more whole foods, especially plant foods. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to eat foods that support my gut. I'm going to cook more at home, and I'm going to lose weight and keep it off. Now, these might sound reasonable, yet the same struggles repeat year after year. So what if instead of setting rigid food goals or intentions, you could choose one habit to understand and gently change? Going back to one of my favourite sayings, we're taking those small steps and getting a big result in the end. And this is where mindful eating and the Eating For You drivers for eating changes everything. I was reflecting towards the end of last year that in my coaching calls with ladies, I'm not talking about their weight loss goals, and neither are they. They're talking about the habits that are keeping them from eating healthier long term. And this is why this episode is really special, because I'm sharing with you the insights that I have gained in my own journey with food, but also from my clients over the past 30 odd years. Resolutions focus on control and outcomes, whereas mindful eating focuses on habits and understanding them. And you might have heard of SMART goals too, which encourage us to be very specific about our goal, be able to measure it, make sure it's achievable and realistic, and even have a time frame put on it when we've achieved that particular result. This approach might work totally fine to a degree for a kitchen renovation that is going to increase your storage space to let more light in, cost you $10,000 and be completed in 6 weeks. But when you start thinking that you can lose 10 kilos in 8 weeks and keep it off, then SMART goals start losing their value and can actually cause harm. When we're wanting to change eating behaviours that we could have had for a lifetime or for many decades, rigid rules often ignore our emotional needs, our levels of stress and fatigue, our hormone fluctuations and our stage of life, and also past dieting experience that has really embedded a software of an all or nothing approach to eating. When we don't address the why of eating, habits will keep coming back. Snacking creeps back in. Emotional eating feels out of control. Restricting your food leads to overeating as that dieting software is running in the background. Mindful eating isn't about trying harder, it's about becoming curious instead of critical. And it definitely removes that all or nothing thinking or approach to healthy eating as we start reflecting on how mindful we have been rather than how good or bad we have been. Eating is never random. It is driven or triggered by something. And this is why I created the 9 drivers for eating in the Eating For You approach. And these drivers include physical hunger. We're pausing here to reflect whether you eat because you're hungry, or whether you finish when you're satiated or still hungry or overfull. Our food choices are also driven by health, both the health of our body, but also our health goals. And we have certain knowledge or beliefs about food and how that will improve our health. And we may strive to follow these guidelines, whether they work or not. Ethical, religious, spiritual factors may influence your food choices as well, including what, when, and how you eat. Body image is another driver for eating, and when we feel uncomfortable in our bodies, we may restrict food or empty out the biscuit barrel. And these extremes of eating, unfortunately, often develop into eating disorders such as binge eating disorder. We're driven to eat foods that we're familiar with and we can prepare. So this is reflecting our food knowledge and the skills that we have in selecting, preparing and cooking food. Pleasure is an important driver for eating, and it's something that I want you all to have, but not at the expense of your health and well-being, and that is certainly something that is achievable. Your food preferences, whether it's the flavours or textures of food, will guide your food choices as well. Emotions and stress levels can lead to under-eating or overeating. In the long term, the overeating habit is of great concern because food becomes our solution to all of our problems and our go-to stress reliever. And having worked with so many women over the years, I know that some of you will be aware that you have a comfort or stress or emotional eating habit, and others will not understand why they can't stick to healthy eating. And that's why I have developed the Emotional Eating Triggers Checklist, and you can download that for free, and the link to that resource has been included in this episode's notes. The 9th driver for eating is convenience. Not all of us want to be gourmet chefs, including me. So it's about having simple, easy to prepare meals that taste good, rather than picking up a takeaway on the way home from work or berating yourself because you're not that adventurous in the kitchen. So how do we use these different drivers for eating to understand and change our habits? Let's have a look at an overeating habit. This may have come about because of a lack of knowledge, understanding, or confidence in tuning into and listening to your hunger and satiety cues. Wanting to lose weight to improve your health can also create an overeating habit, because when we restrict food, we often rebound with overeating, and we can feel like we're in that cycle of restriction and overeating. Dissatisfaction with your body image can lead to overeating, but also the development of binge eating disorder. Soothing emotions with food is another driver. But eating for pleasure can also create this habit. I've had so many clients say to me, Sally Ann, my problem is I just love food. So sustainable change happens when women identify which driver is most active for them. And it's a balance here, because for all of us, we want to invest in our health. So we want to make sure that health driver is important, yet we can still eat for pleasure. We can still have our food preferences, and we can take care of our emotions and stress without relying on food. So I'm just going to share some examples now to help you understand how these drivers have worked for real women who have started with what they would consider unhealthy, perhaps disordered eating habits, and by adopting mindful eating, they've been able to change one habit at a time. So one of the things that Carol wanted to work on was afternoon snacking. And I have spoken to Carol before on the Eating For You podcast, and the episode number is provided in the notes. Carol thought her problem was just snacking too much. But when we started exploring and reflecting, Carol realised that her real driver was skipping meals and not tuning into her hunger and satiety levels. So one of the things that Carol worked on was finding what meal times worked for her and becoming confident in tuning into and trusting her hunger and satiety levels. Her snacking has settled and she has experienced other health benefits as well, which she says in our discussion on the Eating For You podcast. Judy came into our Foundations Mindful Eating program knowing that she used food to cope with stress, but she probably didn't understand how her history of dieting had actually sort of strengthened that emotional eating habit. So for Judy, learning to pause and identify emotions has been a huge thing. But one of the first things that she actually had to do was give herself permission to eat anything. And that way, food no longer controlled her. She had the power and the authority to choose what she wanted to eat. Emotional eating has now reduced for Judy. There's been no food rules involved at all. And in our most recent podcast discussion, Judy mentioned how the practice of mindfulness has moved from not just her eating, but into every part of her life. So she's feeling less stress, and that driver for stress eating has all but gone. When I met Valerie, she had lost a considerable amount of weight, which I will say up front, after 3 years, she has been able to maintain that weight loss. Valerie, like many of my clients, had been stuck in that cycle of on and off dieting, and she had a real fear of weight gain. By adopting mindful eating and tuning into her hunger and satiety, Valerie has been able, as I said, to maintain her new lower weight. And Valerie has also graciously shared her story on the Eating For You podcast. And all of the ladies that I'm sharing snippets of their journey with habit change today have shared with us on the Eating For You podcast, and I'll make sure all of the episodes are listed with the notes. So when I met Bronwyn, she explained her habit as eating in secret, and she ate in private due to shame because she was trying to eat healthier but didn't want others to see that she wasn't being successful. And the real driver for this eating habit came from the guilt of past dieting attempts or failures as she saw them. The other thing that Bronwyn has come to realise is that this whole cycle of restriction with dieting and overeating can create that mindset of a fear of missing out. And that is probably the last of the dieting software that Bronwyn is working on to remove at the moment. But by removing food rules and practicing self-compassion, Bronwyn has been able to set up a healthier way of eating that is more mindful and much more sustainable for her. Gayle has shared that often she felt out of control around food, being on that overeating roller coaster and not sure how to get off it. And for Gayle, being able to take better care of her diabetes was a strong driver. So it was really frustrating that she wasn't able to eat in a way that supported her health. But when we started exploring what was below the surface of her eating habits, it was stress, but also that perfectionism, that kind of all or nothing way of eating that unfortunately is set up by past dieting attempts. So for Gayle, being able to slow down and eat mindfully and tune into her body has allowed her to start rebuilding trust and also the confidence and belief that she can look after herself through healthier and nourishing food choices. None of these women or the other women that I work with needed to have more willpower. They needed insight, guidance, and support to change their main driver for eating one habit at a time. So, what might this mean for you? I invite you to ask yourself, which habit causes me the most frustration? When does this habit show up? And what might this habit be trying to help me with? So you may snack for energy, for nourishment, distraction, or stress. You may have an emotional eating habit because it brings you comfort, relief, a feeling of safety. You may overeat because of your past history restricting food. You may overeat because of stress. You may overeat because you haven't given yourself permission to eat all foods and have a fear of missing out. So mindful eating isn't necessarily about removing habits, it's about understanding them and reshaping them with kindness and self-compassion. If you suspect you have an emotional eating habit and would like some guidance on this, then please download that free resource, our Emotional Eating Triggers Checklist. It will help you identify what's really driving your eating and give you a step to get started on a new way of eating that you can sustain. The other opportunity I have for you today is to join me in a 30-minute mindful eating strategy call. This is really about getting personalized support because you've tried to do it yourself or you don't know where to start. You're sick of going on and off diets, and in 2026, you really want to have a way of eating that you can enjoy, that supports your health and you can sustain. So I offer these 30-minute free calls, and the link to my booking calendar is also included in this episode's notes. So please, before you commit to another resolution or diet, understand what's really driving your eating, because that's where change really begins. Thanks for listening today, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please let us know and share the link on your social media pages. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that so you don't miss out on future episodes. Wishing you a mindful day ahead. You have been listening to the Eating For You podcast with Sally Ann Pisk. If you are looking for additional support to enjoy a lifelong way of healthier eating, then join me in a free 30-minute call to see if our approach is right for you. I have included the link to book an obligation-free call in this episode's notes.